Today is June the 6th, 2007. We are at the Mooresville Public Library, and our interview today is with Miss Katherine Winsel, better known as Kat. She grew up in the Broadway School Air Road section of Mooresville, and she's going to talk to us about her experiences growing up there. She also worked at Stone Street Cafe, so we'll talk about that too. Thank you, Miss Winsel, for coming and allowing us to interview you. And tell us, first of all, you said that your father was a farmer and he sold logs. So will you tell us about something about that?
Well, he was a farmer and we lived on the Duke Power land. You might well say a sharecropper. And so on the weekend, he would cut wood and split it to sell for stove, cooking. And so he'd take me with him when he would go. And I was about 5 years old. And we'd take it a load over to Lawyer Turlington. And then he'd take a load over to Miss Davis. And so when he'd get his money from the wood, and he'd go buy groceries, and he'd go to Mr. Badge Goodman's store. And that is where Whitlow's shoe shop is now. And then he'd go to Mr. Lester Mayhew's store up the street. And then
here in McNeely.
Yes. And then he'd go out and sit and talk to some other farmers on the cement in front of the store and let me go up and down the street. So I'd go up and look in every store window and see what was going on. And I can remember a big commotion out in the middle of the street one Saturday afternoon, and I'm mixed up here.
That's okay. Keep going. What was the big commotion about?
Well, Miss Flowers had a hotel over on the corner where Wachovia Bank is now, and it had a balcony up over it. And all this crowd would gather in the street and was looking to see what's going on. Well, here I come right in the middle of that crowd looking. My daddy come over and got me by the hand and leaded me back and made me sit down. But we watched. And some old man had hung himself upstairs. And they brought him down and put him in something and took him away.
Had hung himself in one of the rooms of the hotel upstairs?
In one of the rooms upstairs. But Miss Flowers had that hotel, and my daddy would sell her eggs, chickens, and ducks, and stuff for her hotel. So he'd go in the kitchen to take the eggs and stuff, and I'd go with him. And she had the biggest dining room, had pretty white tablecloths on it. And I always wanted to get up to that table and eat, but I never did get to. And so then there was a big house that stood next door, big two-story house stood next door to the hotel. And it's gone now and Knox's brother.
That was Miss Mary McNeely's house, right? That was Miss Mary McNeely, who was a teacher at the high school. She lived there.
And then on up the street, my dad, when we come to town before we went up the street, well, he'd hitch his horses down behind the police department.
And where was the police department?
On Broad Street upstairs.
In
that first building there upstairs. And Culver's had a furniture store there.
Culver was on the corner and the police station was beside it.
On the left, upstairs.
Yeah.
And so he'd hitch his horses up back there. And then we'd spend the day uptown And
Did you do this about every Saturday?
every Saturday.
Every Saturday, year round.
Tell us about what year you're talking about. I think you told us you were maybe 5 years old, so that was the
and 5 from
early 30s?
Let's see, you were born in 29, so that would have been 1934. You were 5 years old.
It was not 34 because my brother was 20 years old.
Okay.
Okay?
And it was 1934.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember Turner's Hardware. I'd follow my daddy in Turner's Hardware and look at all the things in there and talk to Mr. Turner. And Kevin's funeral home was down in an old brown-looking house behind where Pike Service Station is. Between that schoolhouse and Pike Service Station.
They were down that way.
Now, are you talking on
No,
South?
that's right. They were
Are you
down that
just
way
South
before.
Main Street?
No, before they were on Main Street, they were
Yeah.
off of Main Street.
Okay, all right. I'm trying to figure out where Pike Service Station is. Now I know where you're talking
On the
about.
corner.
On the
Broad Street and Moore.
Broad Street and Moore, right, yeah.
And then the ice cream place was still there.
Mhm.
Was that it?
Mm-hmm.
And Miller's Drugstore was on Main Street. And I always got a big cone of ice cream there every Saturday.
That was a real treat.
Mm-hmm. And then I'd go with my daddy to the cotton gin in the fall when we picked cotton. And that was a big treat for me because we just went, after we got through, he'd hitch your old horses up in the parking lot down there and we'd spend the day uptown. And I'd look down all the store windows and he'd take me to Carpenter's store. You remember Carpenter's store?
It wasn't downtown though, was it?
Yes,
It
it
was? No.
It was up there about where Irene Brown had her dress shop.
Okay.
And he'd give me a pair of shoes. And they laced up. And it had Brad's on them. Did you run me?
I know, you hook the laces around them.
Yeah.
Kind of like when you put on skating shoes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm. And you didn't give it one pair a year, so you had to be careful with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if the soles wore out, he'd go to the shoe shop and get soles and repair them himself.
Mm-hmm.
And then
So this was, but there were a lot of people, were there a lot of people uptown on Saturday afternoons?
everybody went to town on Saturday. And they'd stand and talk and talk and talk.
Caught up on all the news.
Yeah. And in my mind, I thought, when I get bigger, I'm going to work up in this town. And I did.
And you did.
I did. And they had a theater right about where, this was in a little bit later years.
Mm-hmm.
They had a theater right where Merle Norman's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the jewelry store, right?
jewelry store.
Right along in there.
So my daddy gave me 20 cents when he told me to go to the movies. Well, I went, I got in for a dime, and I got a bag of popcorn and something to drink for 20 cents. And I was watching the movie. It was a cowboy movie, but I don't remember what it was. And I ran out every little bit to see if he was still sitting up there. I thought he might leave me. And finally, it was over, and I went back, and it was time to go home then. And
Did your mother come with you on these excursions to town, or was it just you and your father?
me and my daddy, till my brother got about 4 years old, and he brought him with us one time. And we was crossing from Broad Street up by the depot, and a train was coming. Oh, he was making an awful sound, and that black smoke rolling and a whistle blowing, and it like scared my brother to death. And he got my daddy's hand and started screaming, "Daddy, it's going to get me, it's going to get me, it's going to get me." So he dragged him on across. And then when cold weather would come, we'd go to town. He'd go down to the depot, and it had a little old pot-bellied stove set in there. And all of men would gather around that stove and talk. And I'd sit over in a chair. And that was so boring.
Now, since you live down in the county, did you go to Brawley School?
I went to Brawley School the first year it was built.
Mm-hmm. And how many grades did it have at that point?
11.
11. So, okay, so there were people that actually graduated from school at the Brawley School back
Oh,
then.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
So did you graduate from there?
No, I
Well,
didn't graduate.
But you went through all through school there at Brawley School.
Yeah.
So most of the people, the children that were going to school there were like you, probably growing up on farms out along Brawley School
that's
Road.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. B.L. Kaiser was the principal. And brother, he was a rough one. And Miss Leona Robinson was my first grade teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And she lived down on Broad Street somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, once you grew up, and you understand you went to work in Stone Street's Cafe.
well, I worked at Elk's Dime Store on the weekends when I was 13.
Mm-hmm.
And it's now, what is in there now?
Well, it's now being renovated.
Yeah, well, that was my first job.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about working at Dilk's.
Well, I worked out on the floor, selling stuff, in the cash register. And my cash register, Sir Francis would tell me it was always perfect. And that thrilled me to death.
Mm-hmm.
So they moved me to the candy counter.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to clean it and keep it filled up. And Sir Francis used to tell me how nice it looked. But Mr. Delk never told me nothing happened. He sat up in his office and watched.
Now, for those people that don't know, since Delk's no longer exists, describe the candy counter.
It was up near the front door on the right. And it was a long bin, and it had sections in it, glass sections. You had chocolate-covered peanuts in it, once again, orange slices in another one, and peppermints in the other one, and peanuts in one. And they wasn't all that many different cuts.
But they weren't bagged and sealed like we get them today.
Scoop, and if anybody wanted 2 ounces, or how many, you measured it up for them and figured out the price. So
Put it in a little bag.
little brown bag. And
Did they have a lunch counter in that?
no,
With that, no, they didn't have
no.
that. In Delk's was on the corner of Main Street in Moore, the building that's being renovated now, isn't that right?
Or was it down, it was down south?
It was a different
that
location.
big house that you said was
Okay,
It was, okay, it was down toward the middle of the,
middle of town.
yes.
okay.
Then the
Okay.
Roses was on the way down from the end towards work.
Mhm.
The restaurant on past it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, I know.
There
It
was a
was,
store there where the rest, it was, who was it?
was it Mr. Rankin's store?
Yeah, Rankin.
Rankin.
Mr. Rankin's. And then, the Mar Brothers. was down on that end. And then Smith's Taxi was down on the end of Fort History's is now Smith's Taxi there.
Mm-hmm.
And then George Branch had a Texaco service station there.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was McNeely service station, old building still out there on the corner, across from Gibson Brothers now.
That's where the CVS is now.
Yeah.
It was there. The CVS is there now. It was on that corner, McNeely's service station.
No,
Yes.
the service station's still there. It's on the left as you go through town, on the left.
On Main Street?
McNeely's. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you worked in Delks for a while when you were a teenager, and then you went then.
Then when I was almost 17, I was around 17 then or something, 18, close to 18, I guess. And I went to work at Stone Street's Cafe.
And where was Stone Street's?
It was down on South Main Street near Mooresville Mills. And it was a building there, and it had a drugstore beside of it. And then it had a grocery store there. And it had a barber shop. Then later the grocery store left, and they put a pool room in there. And a beauty shop beside of that.
So what did you do at Stone Street? You were a waitress, or were you a cook?
Waitress.
You were a waitress. Mm-hmm.
And that was an experience.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I imagine that a lot of the people that worked in the mill came in there.
Yes, and we made sandwiches for the meal too. And they'd take them and put them on they called it the dope wagon.
Mm-hmm.
And one Saturday, they would always from the mill would bring a ticket out and hang it in the back for us to read to see how many hot dogs and hamburgers to make for the meal. So that day they forgot to take the ticket down. So I went back and looked at the ticket and come back and told the girl that I was working with, Carolyn Blackwell, that it said 20 hot dogs was all we're going to need today. So we made 20 hot dogs, and nobody never did come to pick them up. And so Mr. Stone Street had went home to take his evening nap. And so we took those hot dogs back to the back and pinched them up and put them in the garbage.
Oh dear.
So he wouldn't see them.
How many days a week was Stone Street's Cafe open?
When I first started working there, it was open 6 days. Then, right before he died, it was open 7.
Originally, it was closed on Sundays.
Closed on Sundays. You know, there wasn't anything in the country, Mooresville, nowhere open on Sundays. Then it got so they let restaurants open on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
Then the gas stations would open on Sundays. And then from then on, everything started opening up.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember if any of the men who played ball for the Mooresville Moors, did they come in there to eat?
Yes, they were off. They had a ball team from off somewhere that would come here in the summer and play. And they all ate there.
Mm-hmm.
And see, there wasn't any 77 or 21 mile passes over here. And all the traffic came through here.
Mm-hmm.
And we had people from everywhere that ate there when they'd come through. And every time they'd come through, they would stop there.
Mm-hmm. They had good food.
We really did. It was all home cooked. There wasn't no canned food.
Mm-hmm. So who did the cooking?
Nettie Stockton and Hattie Reed and Geneva, I can't remember her last name, Geneva Gaines. and Joe Pfeiffer and Big John.
So this must have been a pretty big cafe to have that many cooks
It
in
was.
once. How many do you think it could seat?
And see, we had 4 long booths in the back and 1 small booth. Then we had 5 booths behind the long booths in the middle. And then we had about 6 or 7 booths towards the front. And we had 4 tables down the center.
So you could see a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, they didn't hang around after they ate. They usually left. And you could get a T-bone steak for $1.50 with lettuce and tomato on it and French fries. We didn't have baked potatoes. And you could get a 1/4 of a chicken with French fries and lettuce and tomato for 75 cents. And milk was 10 cents. And people drank a lot of milk back then.
Okay, so you worked there for a while then? You worked in Marshall Mills as well, right?
Yeah, I went to work when Burlington did, right after they took it over. And I worked for a long, long time. I quit a couple times, but I went back. And altogether I was around there close to 50 years.
Wow. Wow.
And before they built in the front, it was windows across the front of the mill. We didn't have air conditioning or anything. Just open up the windows.
That was pretty hard work, wasn't it? Hard work and hot work.
It was hot, but work never was hard for me.
Good.
But I worked harder at Stone Street than I ever did in the mill.
I'm sure you did. Because you had to be busy all the time. You were a waitress.
And one time, I served Tommy Dorsey.
The band leader.
Yeah. And I got a $5 tip. And I thought I was rich. I thought I was rich. He was at Davidson College for a concert or something. And Dr. and Mrs. Sloan was my favorite customers.
They were lovely people, weren't they?
They sure were. And Dr. Wren had his office on Main Street upstairs before he built his new building. And that was 56 years ago.
Wow.
And I can remember only remember 2 doctors in town when I was about 5 years old. And that was Dr. Templeton and Dr. Bell. And they would make house calls.
They came all the way out to Broad School Road.
Yeah, my sister was born out there. And Dr. Bell was the doctor. And he was all out there.
I have a question. Before the lake was built, where did Broad School Road go to if you kept on going before the lake was built?
Well, there was a bridge down
Across the river.
across the river bridge. And you crossed it and went on up to Triangle, a little town called Triangle, run out there. And that's Highway 16, run out on 16. Yeah.
Of course, I guess Triangle was covered up by the lake, wasn't it?
No, it's still there.
It's still there.
But you have to go up to the new bridge and cross and go down through Denver, down that way to get straight.
Anything? You got any other stories you want to tell us?
There's a lot of them, but
If you can remember. Any more stories about Stone Streets? Any more memories from being downtown when you were little? I think those are wonderful memories.
Yeah, the First National Bank is where, what's in there now?
The one beside Turner's?
Yeah,
I'm not sure what's.
I think it's vacant now.
well, anyway, my daddy went in there and get a check cashed, and he took my brother with him. And he was about 5 then, I imagine. And so the next Saturday, we went to town, and my brother went down and went into the bank and told Mr. Houston, I believe was in there, no, not Houston, he wanted some money. He said, "Sonny, I can't give you no money." He said, "Well, you give my daddy some last Saturday."
Do you recall hearing stories about a robbery at that bank? Did you ever hear any stories about that bank being robbed?
There was something robbed. What was it?
Well, you probably don't remember that because you were very small at that time. Was Belk's department store on Main Street?
Yes.
And
I remember going in there and trying on shoes when I was real little. And I remember another drugstore down on the corner where I believe it's a pet grooming place in there now.
Goodman Drug.
Yeah, Goodman Drug Company. I remember that. But I didn't like that. I like Miller's drugstore because you get the best ice cream there. And Mr. Goodman's grocery store. Now, if you bought sugar, he dipped it out of a barrel with a scoop and weighed it in a brown paper bag and tied a string around it. And he had a cracker barrel there, loose crackers in it. You could buy loose crackers.
did he have a pickle jar?
Uh,
A pickle jar?
Yeah, he had a pickle jar. And if you bought coffee, he would measure it up and put it in a brown paper bag and tie it with a string.
Things did not come pre-packaged like they do
And I
today.
wanted to do that so bad, I didn't want to do it. And he had a stalk of bananas that hung in the window. And he'd pull the bananas off and you buy them like that. And he had peaches in a basket, apples in a basket. And then around Christmas time, he'd have a basket of nuts sitting there. And you buy them loose. Everything you bought it loose. But Mr. Goodman always gave me a piece of candy.
Did he have the big jars of candy?
No, he had a little candy counter. And he had little boxes of candy sitting in there. And once in a while I'd have an extra nickel, I'd buy some. But I spent most of my time at Miller's drugstore.
Mr. Price was there then.
Mr. Price?
I don't know if he was there or not.
He was real tall and thin. Wore
I know
glasses.
Mr. Price, but I can't. This is when I
That
was
was
real
before.
small.
That
I
was
know-
before him.
Yeah.
Yeah, before him. I can't remember who was there. All I know, I got ice cream. And then where the old cognac place used to be there on the corner, down here.
On Broad Street?
Broad Street. There was a building in beside of that. And that's where the doctor's offices were. Dr. Bell and Dr. Tilton was upstairs. And we had two dentists I can remember. Was Dr. Bowles and Dr. Tribbett. And everybody headed go to the dentist because they said they hurt you so bad back then. And the old Lower Ranks Hospital was on Center Street.
On West Center.
West Center.
Yeah, on West Center, and that brick building on the right back there.
It's still there, yeah.
Yeah, it's still there. And I guess that's where Dr. Bell and Dr. Tim got to.
Anything else you want to share you can recall?
I should have wrote some of this stuff down.
Well, that's okay. We appreciate it. We appreciate it.
You mentioned when you first started coming to town, you came with your daddy, and you came on a wagon. Did he buy a car at some time?
Oh, he bought one when I was about 15 years old, an old car. When he started working in the mill after he quit farming, he bought this old car.
You know what kind it was?
No, but it was black and it was real old. And he took people to work that lived out Raleigh School that worked on the second shift. And then later on he bought a better one at McKnight's. And then when I worked at Stone Streets, I worked second shift, and he worked second shift. So he would bring me to work, and he'd pick me up after work.
So was Stone Streets open all 3 shifts of the mill work, all 24 hours?
No, it was opened from 5 in the mornings till 12 at night. And then but they'd come and get their sandwiches for their dope wagon for the 3rd shift before around 10 o'clock or something like that.
Do you know why it was called the dope wagon?
Because it sold Coca-Colas, and they called them dopes. They called all bottle drinks dopes.
They thought it was made from cocaine or something like that.
But they doped them up so they could keep them going. I reckon instead of refreshing them up, they doped them up.
Kept you awake if you were working at night.
Yeah.
I imagine they were pretty strong with caffeine.
Well, they put caffeine back in on them. And Coke, some Coke too, that they've taken out now, I've heard.
You mentioned that when we were talking to you a while ago that you went to Fieldstone Presbyterian Church. Did you go to Second Presbyterian when you were young? Tell us where that was.
I started Second Presbyterian when Raymond Horn was preached there. And it was in the 50s. It was 56 when I joined Fieldstone Church. Second Presbyterian Church.
And tell us where it was located.
Wilson Avenue.
East Wilson.
Yeah, East Wilson on the corner.
East Wilson and Church.
Yeah, that's where it is, East Wilson and Church.
It's still there, but it's not a church anymore.
It's an apartment house, I understand. And then they moved it to Fieldstone, and we all had to move over there. And
Okay. Well, Kat, we certainly appreciate you you're allowing us to interview you, and we appreciate all the stories you've told about life in Mooresville in the 30s. Sound like you had a good time as a child when you came to town.
I did.
Okay. Thank you very much.